Hello everyone, and welcome to Kingdom Protoctista. The last time we met, we looked at Kingdom Prokaryote, where we looked at bacteria, the different classes of bacteria. We looked at the economic importance of bacteria. We looked at their structure, and I gave you also a task to do more research about bacteria, and then send me your findings so that we can discuss further. I hope you did that, and I've seen some responses from some people. That was great. Thank you everyone. So this time we are going to lesson 3. The topic is classification, and we are looking at classification of Kingdom Protoctista. Well, this kingdom was formerly called Kingdom Protista, and those organisms were called protists. However, the name has still remained. The kingdom is Protoctista, and the organisms are called the protists. And these members are eukaryotes. Unlike the monerans or the prokaryotes, these ones are eukaryotes. They have true nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. And some of them are single-celled, they are unicellular, and others are multicellular, they have many cells. And they have very many phyla, but we may not be able to cover all of them, but we are going to look at a few that are common, and especially those that have a great economic importance to man. So welcome to Kingdom Protoctista. Let's start with phylum RHIZOPODA. So this phylum, the pronunciation is RHIZOPODA, and it includes the Amoeba. This one lives in fresh water. You must have probably learnt about Amoeba right from senior 1. That organism that has the pseudopodia, the pseudopods, and moves using the pseudopods, and it feeds by engulfing. You remember that organism, the Amoeba? Well, then there are others like the Entamoeba histoltica, that one that causes amoebic dysentery. Largely, the amoeboid species are free-living, but there are those that cause disease, like the Entamoeba histoltica, that causes amoebic dysentery. The passage of watery stool stained with blood, and is a very severe form, may cause death, and may cause anemia and death. So let's look at the characteristics of the rhizopods, members of Rhizopoda. So one, they are unicellular, meaning they are made up of one cell. The whole organism is made up of one cell, and they bear false feet called pseudopodia. The word pseudopodia can be divided into two: pseudo meaning false, and pod meaning feet or foot. So pseudopodia is false feet. They don't have true feet, but they have false feet. The feet-like structures that develop for a given purpose, either movement or feeding. Great. They reproduce asexually, as we shall see later on, and they also feed heterotrophically. They are not able to make their own foods, so they feed on already manufactured food from other organisms. So when you look at the amoeboid cell there, you can identify some of the parts. Which parts do you know? Well, I can imagine you know the pseudopod. Great. And you can see the organism ingesting a food particle there by engulfing. And then you have the food vacuole there that forms after engulfing has taken place. And then the contractile vacuole, that one is plays a role in osmoregulation. And then we have the nucleus, which controls activities of the cell. And then the cell membrane, of course, allows movement in and out of the cells. And the cytoplasm, where most of the cell reactions take place. So that is the structure, the basic structure of amoeba. They say amoeba don't have shape. They don't have what? a definitive shape. So you can continue observing amoeboid cells there as we proceed. So let's look at the functions of the parts. Already we had mentioned some. So the mitochondria, one is mitochondrion and many mitochondria. These ones are used for production of energy. Yes, they play a role of respiration to produce energy. And then the cytoplasm, we already said that it's a place where chemical reactions of the cell take place, or metabolic reactions. Then the contractile vacuole, used for osmoregulation, removal of excess water, excess mineral salts from the body, and to maintain the osmotic pressure and osmotic potential of the cell. And then we have the nucleus, which is controls all the activities of the cell. So that is phylum Rhizopoda. Let's look at another phylum, CILIOPHORA. These ones are ciliates. They have cilia. Examples include paramecium, stentor, vorticella, dinidia, and many others. So their characteristics generally is that they are unicellular, just like the members of the Rhizopoda. They are also made up of one single cell. The whole organism is just one cell. And then they feed heterotrophically. They are not able to make their own food. They do not carry out photosynthesis. Neither do they carry out chemosynthesis. Therefore, they are heterotrophic. Then their cilia has a 9+2 microtubule arrangement that we are going to see shortly. The cilia collects food and also is used for locomotion. So the role of the cilia is for locomotion, but also for collecting food. So we had talked about the 9+2 arrangement of microtubules in their flagella and cilia. So you can look at that structure there. You realize that the microtubules are arranged in a 9+2 fashion, whereby there are 2 in the middle and then 9 pairs around in the periphery. So that one is what we call a 9+2 arrangement, that pattern of arrangement of microtubules in flagella and cilia. Okay, other characteristics. Their habitat is usually fresh water, but there are also some that live in salty water, in marine water. They have 2 nuclei. There is a larger nucleus called the macronucleus. This one controls most of the activities of the cell. And then there's another nucleus called the micronucleus. And this one controls particularly sexual reproduction or conjugation. That one is the micronucleus. So, have you ever imagined that a cell could have 2 nuclei? Well, if you have been wondering, it is also possible. And it is very possible in the ciliates, the members of CILIOPHORA, like the paramecium. The macronucleus controls most of the activities of the cell and is usually large in size. Then the micronucleus controls reproduction, sexual reproduction. Well, the macronucleus is polyploid. Polyploid means they have more than 2 sets of chromosomes. And the micronucleus is diploid. It has only 2 sets of chromosomes. So that's another fascinating, interesting fact about them. Well, you can look at the structure of the paramecium, the member of phylum CILIOPHORA. You can see its parts there. The cilia, one is called cilium, and many are cilia. And then we have parts there. Contractile vacuole, as usual, plays a role in osmoregulation and excretion. And then we have the macronucleus, as we saw, the bigger one, which controls most of the activities of the cell. Then that micronucleus controls majorly sexual reproduction. Then we have the cytoplasm, where most of the cell's activities take place from. Then the food vacuoles there, where digestion of the food takes place. Enzymes are secreted and the digestion takes place. The anal pore there for removal of some wastes. The oral groove or the mouth, the cell mouth or the cytostome, that one is for ingestion of particles. It's not like the amoeba where ingestion is done by engulfing using the pseudopodia, the pseudopods. Well, that is the structure. So let's look at another phylum under kingdom Protoctista, and this one is called Zoomastigina. In some books it's called Zoomastigophora. They are animal-like from the word zoo. They are animal-like protists, and they are usually having flagella. They are flagellated. So examples include trypanosoma, which causes, of course, trypanosomiasis or sleeping sickness. Then we have trichomonas, like that is that causes trichomonas vaginalis, that causes foul smell in the vaginal cavity or the vaginal area of the female humans. Yeah, let's look at the characteristics. They bear flagella for locomotion. Very important. Remember, the RHIZOPODA, the amoebas, use pseudopodia for locomotion. The CILIOPHORA, they use cilia. Now the Zoomastigina, they use flagella for locomotion. They are also heterotrophic, just like the rest of the friends there. And then they are unicellular. They reproduce both sexually and asexually. And they also bear a 9+2 microtubule arrangement, like we saw earlier on. So examples there, we have the Giardia lambia, that causes giardiasis, which is severe diarrhea, sometimes leading to intestinal cramps. Yeah, so it is a common parasite among humans and also other animals, and can also be spread, especially due to poor disposal of human wastes. You can contract giardiasis. Great. We have another phylum called Euglenophyta. Euglenophyta. I hope you know the euglenas. You must have heard about the euglena. Yeah, that is the only known or existing or extant member of Euglenophyta. And we are going to look at the characteristics of the euglena. They are unicellular, they reproduce asexually, they move by flagella, just like the Zoomastigina members, they also move by flagella. Some of them are photosynthetic. In fact, most of them are photosynthetic. However, others are heterotrophic. Now, the euglena is majorly photosynthetic, and this is its structure. The body structure has those parts, and we can start from the flagella clockwise. So the flagellum is one, and many are called flagella. So that flagellum is used for locomotion. So it beats to propel the cell forward, to move the organism forward. It is used for locomotion. Then we have the eye spot there. That one is used, it is photoreceptive, it is photosensitive. It is used for detecting light. And usually the organism moves towards where light is because it's a photosynthetic organism. Then the chloroplasts, sites for photosynthesis. They also contain a green pigment. Then we have mitochondrion. That one is a site for respiration, is where respiration takes place, produce energy for the organism. The nucleus controls the cell activities, and the nucleolus is where the ribosomes are manufactured from. And then we have the stored carbohydrates there, especially products of photosynthesis, are stored in those granules. Then the endoplasmic reticulum form the intracellular cell, intracellular transport systems there, and the rough endoplasmic reticulum also have ribosomes attached to them where protein synthesis takes place. Then the Golgi apparatus, or sometimes called the Golgi body, plays a role of secretion of molecules, but also assembling of different proteins that are manufactured in the cell. Contractile vacuole is for osmoregulation and excretion. So that is the structure of a euglena, the euglena cell, a member of Euglenophyta. The other phylum is Apicomplexa, Apicomplexa, sometimes called the sporozoans. And the members here, the popular members of this phylum, are the plasmodium parasites that we know causes malaria. So the characteristics include the following. They are unicellular, meaning they are made up of one cell. They are heterotrophic, meaning they get food from other organisms, so they cannot carry out photosynthesis like a euglena. They cannot carry out chemosynthesis like other bacteria, so they are heterotrophic. So they get food from other organisms. And most of them are parasites. They live as parasites. They lack locomotor structures simply because they are parasitic in nature and they live in host cells. So they do not have need for locomotor structures. They are spore-producing parasites. They produce spores. That's why they are called sporozoans. Later on, we shall see the life cycle of plasmodium parasites, and we shall see they produce spores or sporozoites. They reproduce sexually and asexually. Their life cycles are complex, involving several animal hosts, as we shall see later on. For example, the plasmodium parasite has two hosts: the mosquito, which is the intermediate host, and then the human being, who is the definitive host, as we shall see. So their structure contains an apical complex. That pointed part there has some sort of structures that make it so difficult to identify or even to study. In fact, not much is even known about that apical complex. A lot of research has been done, but no one has exhausted fully to reveal information about that apical part of the Apicomplexa. That's why it is called Apicomplexa. It has an apical complex with a lot of structures that are difficult to analyze properly. So there are a number of organelles there that you can see, some of which are shared by all organisms, and they play quite similar roles like they do in other organisms as well. So let's look at the life cycle of Plasmodium, the malaria parasite. So what happens? How do you suffer from malaria? How do you contract it? Is what we want to look at. So what is important is that this malaria or Plasmodium parasite is transmitted by an insect called a female Anopheles mosquito. And that mosquito must have the parasites for it to transmit. You cannot transport what you don't have. So it must be infected itself so that it can pass it to other hosts. So that's what we want to look at. So to begin with, an infected Anopheles mosquito will bite you, will bite a person, injecting that person with the Plasmodium sporozoites from its saliva. The sporozoites enter the person's liver. Now what happens is that when the mosquito, Anopheles mosquito, the female Anopheles mosquito bites the person, it will release anticoagulant chemicals from its saliva, and those chemicals will prevent blood from clotting, so that the mosquito can suck the blood from you without it clotting. So in the process of sucking blood, it releases the plasmodium parasites into your blood system. Eventually, as soon as these plasmodium parasites enter into your blood system, the first destination, the first place where they will enter is the liver. So they will be transported through the blood vessels into the liver. And those plasmodium parasites injected in you are at a stage of sporozoites. So after several days in the liver now, the sporozoites undergo multiple division and become merozoites, which use the apical complex to penetrate the red blood cells. The merozoites divide asexually inside the red blood cell. So the sporozoites in the liver will undergo division, will multiply. After dividing, they will change into merozoites. So these merozoites are the ones that have the apical complex and can penetrate the red blood cells, which are their host cells. So after entering the red blood cells, they will continue dividing. The merozoites will continue dividing inside the red blood cell. They increase in number. So at intervals of 48 and 72 hours, depending on the species, large numbers of merozoites break out of the red blood cells, causing periodic chills and fever. Some of the merozoites infect other red blood cells. So what is important is that inside the red blood cell, these merozoites will undergo cell division, increasing in their number. When there are many, they burst the red blood cell. The red blood cell breaks, releasing very many merozoites. And those merozoites invade other red blood cells in the same way. They continue dividing and breaking them as well. So as many red blood cells break or get destroyed, you will begin feeling the symptoms of malaria. The chills, the fever, and the weakness, because you are now, your red blood cells are getting broken. And remember, red blood cells are they carry oxygen through the body. So your capacity to carry oxygen will be impaired, and you will feel weakness in the body. At the same time, you will begin passing urine which is stained orange or reddish, a sign that it possesses hemoglobin. Yeah, because of the breakdown of the red blood cells. So that is now the severe form, and you can even suffer from anemia as a result of losing very many red blood cells. So at that point now, when there are very many merozoites in your blood system, another Anopheles mosquito bites the infected person and picks up the plasmodium gametophytes along with the blood. So another mosquito will come and bite you when you are having malaria. It will not only pick blood, but it will also pick the parasites with it. And that's how mosquitoes get infected with pick up the malaria parasites. So the gametes form from the gametophytes. Each male and female produces several slender male gametes, and then the female as well. So fertilization occurs in the mosquito digestive tract, and the zygote forms. So this mosquito picks the male and the female from you, and then fertilization is completed at the digestive system or tract of the mosquito. And then an oocyte develops from the zygote in a wall of the mosquito gut. The oocyte releases thousands of sporozoites which migrate the mosquito salivary glands. So that is how the parasite again reaches the salivary glands of the mosquito. And the cycle repeats itself. So in summary, you can see from here, the mosquito, stage 1, the Anopheles mosquito, they are biting somebody, sucking blood, but also releasing the sporozoites. The sporozoites will move to the liver. From the liver, they multiply. They undergo cell division and multiply. And then they will burst. They burst the liver cells and then they are released into the red blood cells. As they invade the red blood cells, they also continue to multiply. The merozoites now multiply inside the red blood cells, from which those red blood cells will succumb and burst, releasing very many other merozoites. And the process continues. Many of the red blood cells will be broken, and then symptoms of malaria will be seen in the victim, and that is when you suffer most. So at that stage, equally, you are also very infectious. It means you can also spread malaria to other people, because a mosquito can come and bite you and pick the gametocytes from you, the male and the female, which will enter into the mosquito gut and then complete the life cycle from there. And then, they complete the cycle, yes. The zygote is formed from the mosquito gut, and then eventually the cycle repeats itself the way you see it there. So great. I hope you can try to now summarize this life cycle of the plasmodium. Well, let's move to another phylum of kingdom Protoctista, and the phylum is Omycota. Omycota. These ones are fungi-like members of Protoctista. They include the Peronospora, and the pythium, which causes potato blight and tomato rot. So those are the members of the Omycota. They are characterized by production of spores that bear flagella. They produce flagellated spores. So such spores are produced both sexually or asexually. So those ones are fungi-like members of Protoctista. Then we look at the plant-like members. They belong to the following phyla. We have phylum Chlorophyta. Those ones are the green algae. I know you must have seen this one. Almost everywhere they are found. We have the Spyrogyra, which is a very common species, especially in the ponds. And then the chlorella, which is unicellular and non-filamentous algae. The Spyrogyra is filamentous. It forms a long thread-like filaments found in the freshwater ponds. Then the chlorella is not filamentous. Then we have the Chlamydomonas, which is motile and also unicellular. So those are the members of phylum Chlorophyta. What is unique or peculiar with them is that they are green. They are green in color. So you can see there the Spyrogyra, one which is just collected from the pond, and then after looking through the microscope, we were able to see that, and then we try to represent it on paper by drawing like that. So you can see its parts there. The structure contains those parts. We can move clockwise from the mucilage. The mucilage is just that mucus layer on top of the cells. When you touch it, it's very slippery. And then we have, it's usually for protection and also for sticking together. Very many filaments do stick together so as to withstand harsh environmental conditions. Then inside we have the cell wall for protection, and then we have the cell membrane, allows movement in and out of materials, the cytoplasm, the site for many metabolic activities, the pyrenoid, storage of starch or sugars. Then we have vacuole there, also stores some reactants. And then we have nucleus, controls cell activities, chloroplast, where photosynthesis takes place. But this member has a spirochloroplast. So all that entire those strands you are seeing is the chloroplast. It's a spiral in nature. So that is the structure, and usually this cells, this organism is connected to, it has many cells connected together to form a long filament. And then we have another phylum of the plant-like protists, phylum PHAEOPHYTA, and these are usually brown algae like the Fucus, Ascophyllum, and others. So what is common with them is that they possess chlorophyll, and of course when they possess chlorophyll, it means they can carry out photosynthesis. They are also multicellular, means they are made up of many cells, and then they are marine, and therefore in many oceans and seas they are called seaweeds. They are found in saltwater bodies. They contain a brown pigment called fucoxanthin. So that fucoxanthin is what makes them appear brown in color. So that is the brown algae. You can see there we have the brown algae in the sea. You can see it looks brown. And then we have phylum Rhodophyta. These ones we're talking about the red algae. And these members are many, but they include the chaudhries. And the characteristics include the following. They are also marine. They are found in oceans and seas. They contain chlorophyll. And what does that mean? They also carry out photosynthesis. They contain a red pigment called phycoerythrin. This phycoerythrin makes them appear red in color. And then it produces agar, which is extracted from them for laboratory purposes. So they are used for extraction of agar, which is used as a culture medium for many microbes in the laboratory. So it is a commercial, economically important. So you can see that beautiful sea covered by the red algae. I am told that the Red Sea was also covered by the red algae, and that's where the name Red Sea comes from. Not blood, but the red algae. Otherwise, why would you get blood to cover the whole sea? So, having looked at different phyla of kingdom Protoctista, let's look at the economic importance. And remember, we said economic importance means advantages and disadvantages. So let's see the advantages and disadvantages of the members of this kingdom. And well, we want to focus more on the algae, since it is the commonest and has a greater impact. But also others similarly have their advantages and disadvantages. So the algae can be used as fertilizers in farms. That's true, can be collected and fermented and then used in farms to add manure to the farms. Then, of course, we know algae carry out photosynthesis in the oceans, which provide food for other organisms. They act as primary producers in the oceans and the seas. They also release oxygen, and this oxygen is used by the aquatic organisms which live in the waters. So they are very important there. Some of their products are useful in various industrial processes. For example, in bioresearch, in pharmacology, in therapeutic medicine, used to manufacture biofuels, and so on. So they are very important in the industrial processes. Algal blooms result in severe pollution of water bodies. Growth of algae in large numbers pollutes the water bodies. In fact, algae is an indicator species for pollution. When you have algae in a water body, it's a sign that the water is polluted. It has a lot of nutrients, either phosphates or sulfates, that favor its growth. So algal blooms are disastrous because they lead to death of other or aquatic organisms like fish. So avoid pouring especially products that have phosphates and sulfur like soaps and detergents in the waters. You will cause algal bloom. Some members like the chlorella can be cultivated to provide single cell protein SCP for humans and animal consumption. So these single cell proteins are proteins that are manufactured from microorganisms, and those that are single celled that can be used as food additives for many organisms, including humans. So don't you think that could be interesting? You can take research in that area and extract nutrients from algae and supply them for sale to other organisms or to humans to feed themselves or other organisms. So thank you very much. There are very many other economic importance of these organisms. We only focused on algae, but you can also look at economic importance of other members of the kingdom. For example, plasmodium, cause disease, and so on. Thank you very much for following. Please do a summary of what we have just covered, just to emphasize, to ensure that you don't forget this content, and also stay safe and stay at home.